All right, MA Marignon turned 38, coming off a long break this time, so no idea. So it looks like we got a death basket from Archocephaly. Really no idea why we're getting this. Well, that's a lot of astral gems, which is going to be really, really nice for us. I haven't really had a lot of communication with them until recently. I guess since, I did wipe out an army of Nabaz, so possibly they saw that, and, this is an appreciation. I don't know, I'll have to hit them up and thank them. It is always sad, I think, to see unspent gems, especially in this quantity. That said, spending Astral Pearls in combat in the early game and early mid game, which we're probably solidly in the mid game by this point, but Archocephaly has been down to it for a little while, so yeah, trying to spend those Astral Pearls early on can be pretty challenging, so that is more understandable. Nonetheless, a welcome surprise, not entirely deserved, I feel, since we were thinking about eating Archocephaly, regardless of what happened. We just other things happen, but that's just the nature of these things. They do tend to be chaotic. Speaking of spending Astral Pearls, Arcane Probing, we missed, and it looks like most of our site searching missed, but our Pretender did find a magic site for us. This is near a throne on top of our Lizard Shaman fort. I'm not actually familiar with a singing stream. Sounds like a water gem, but maybe it's a special site. And then there is a grab bag of battles, none of which where we are the attacker, a lot of which involve us, so that's not good. We're being attacked by 4 factions. Kind of surprised. I don't even know how Mictlan is managing to attack us. Maybe this is a remote attack spell. Maybe their fort got unlocked. Anyway, we'll stop speculating and take a look at this battle on top of Xibalba, which does not involve us. It looks like it's just a ping. So yeah, Phlegra must have been on top of the capital, but chose to jump off, right? So Jabal was just poking out to see what was there, and there wasn't really anything there. Ouch, that's sad. So it looks like the scout managed to rout off before the unled Helit warriors routed off. So unfortunately, they didn't actually unlock their fort, and it really depends, but I do think that if you think there's any chance that your opponent is going to jump off your fort, it's probably just worth sacrificing the scout or a commander, right, and not setting them to retreat so that you do unlock your fort and get a turn of recruitment or something. But hindsight is always 20/20. And then we get attacked by Bandar. So Bandar is probably going to be the next person. Here's the thug group. It looks like he has some friends back. Here's his priest. He probably had to shuttle this priest out from fairly far afield. That's why he has the boots, I'm guessing. Some more boots. So, and then, we're very familiar with this guy. Let's see. Looks like, okay, we just have, I'm not actually totally sure where this is or which group this is. I think this is where originally we were trying to build a fort, and we got, that got knocked down. And we have a Grandmaster here, it looks like. Yeah. And a small communion, so a little Soul Slay communion with some of our Sacreds. Our Sacreds are not going to do great. We don't have a ton of province defense here. We do have a Shaman. I think he's set up for Curse or maybe a Swarm. I do not remember. Yeah, Swarm it looks like. Okay, so that's good. So we're going to try to Soul Slay this guy. Let's take a look. Where is his magic resistance at? 19. That's not great, but it's not terrible either. And we don't really have any penetration gear yet, right? So, but Swarm will keep him busy for a while. Like I said, I think our Knights are really going to struggle. We're really going to be relying on this Soul Slay communion. And so we're going to have to keep an eye. Our fatigue is already fairly high. On our communion slaves, and we cannot soul slay, right? This guy's only an astral 2. He's one of our earth randoms. That's kind of why he's out here. He's doing some site searching for us. So yeah, we're trying to soul slay, and this thug is definitely really dangerous, but it's nice. Well, these soul slays are probably scripted, and we'll see what we do off script. The Body Ethereal is not really going to matter for our Knights because we have magic weapons, but the Awe and everything, and we just don't quite have the strength to get through the 31 protection. He's done a really good job there. Unfortunately, by the time our bugs get up, I think we're going to lose this. And it looks like now that we're off script, we're no longer casting, Soul Slay. So, the AI feels that it isn't worth it. And not really sure what our Friar is doing all the way up there. Okay, nice. And there's Blood Vengeance as well. I wonder if that's okay. So he must have taken, wow. Okay, so I was wondering, right, if maybe Bandar Log was doing something weird, right? Because he's just been sitting in his forts. He has a bunch of his sacreds. His bless seemed like pretty light. Probably should have looked at his scales more. I don't really remember those offhand. But so he took some incarnate blesses, right? Regeneration and Blood Vengeance. You need your god to be awake, like present in the game. So if they're dead, these go offline. And if you're imprisoned, you're not on the map. They're also offline. So he took some of these on an imprisoned chassis, which is pretty unusual and very dangerous. And I don't think it worked out great for him, right? We can see that, he spent most of the game as a very small nation, but he hasn't really taken a lot of losses either, right? Like, he has a huge stack of stuff, and it appears like this is what he's waiting for. And this is definitely going to matter, right? I think the regeneration is not going to be great on his sacreds, but it's also not going to be awful. And combined with the Blood Vengeance, right? So that's going to be more times that we're going to need to deal damage to his units, and so we're going to be taking damage back every time. So, I don't think regeneration and Blood Vengeance are a crazy pick to take together. But yeah, taking it, yeah, he got lucky in some ways, right? Like, we've been busy with other things. I do think he's going to come away with this, though. We are definitely in trouble because most of our knights have routed here. I'm not really sure what these knights, I guess this is like a friar. Really not sure like why. Maybe he's set to advance and cast spells. But yeah, it looks like maybe our Grandmaster has retreated. We're going to lose these witch hunters. Yeah, we have an HP route here. So that's unfortunate. So we're going to have to figure out like something else for this thug. Possibly once we get penetration gear, I'll have to look up like what we're going to need. I think with enough penetration gear we can, and enough Soul Slayers, but just one Soul Slayer without penetration gear, you can see like the AI just didn't even bother casting it when it went off script. Obviously, like dropping rocks on this guy is a possibility. Trying to drop rocks on a single thug is difficult, but possible, certainly. And like, yeah, some of our Holy Avengers, so like, sometimes some magic resistance stuff gets through, but if it's not Soul Slay, right, he has enough regeneration that he's going to be able to regenerate that back up. So yeah, we lose 2 witch hunters, some knights. Like, this is a painful loss for us, but not the end of the world. And worst case scenario, like, we can drop rocks on this guy. It's not an efficient way to deal with him, but it'll work. So especially, we just push up a bunch of province defense, right, so that we're not losing anything significant. And like, yeah, this looks like a Zotz province, and this is between Tianqi and Shiniyama. And so Shiniyama just has like, yeah, some Daibakemono who are pretty effective, and I think, yeah, they have at least, yeah, dark vision, right? So this is in a cave, and then Tianqi, I think, probably mostly just has province defense. And the bats just like aren't great. Let's turn on team colored squares. But I mean, they're still going to deal damage to these, goblins. So it's not going to be free. But yeah, I think, Tianqi is mostly done. They've lost their capital. Okay, so some of this is like, the recruited units probably just retreats, right? There's no leadership here other than the province defense leadership. And like, yeah, just a PD dump. And like, yeah, that's pretty good for Shiniyama, only losing 7 of his goblins who are pretty cheap. So yeah, and then we get attacked by Naba, right, and this is their mercenary group. And yeah, we chose to hang out in the cave, right, rather than attack into them, because I was figuring they probably also did a PD dump, right, in the province that these mercenaries were in. And I think we're going to be just fine here because like all of our stuff can see in the dark and the pikemen do not. And I think probably we would beat the pikemen anyway, right? Whether or not it was in the dark. But it being in the dark helps us quite a bit. And like I said, I think Naba is pretty checked out of this game, so they probably figured out what the heck. Like, the mercenaries are going to run out in terms of their contract anyway, and I doubt that Naba. Well, I mean, it would be difficult for them to afford them again, so might as well throw them in. And nothing wrong with attacking the person that just wiped out your army and is sitting on your last capital. And okay, this is just a scout attack. Maybe when AI, I know a lot of people say, I think when the AI takes over, they just like attack with their scouts. I think the AI, I'm pretty sure, just has perfect vision anyway. Certainly, you can kind of pull around the AI's units because they love patrolling out stealthy units, including scouts, and they seem to always know where your scouts are. So sometimes you can just pull their armies around by moving your scouts around, and they just chase them with a ton of stuff to patrol them out. So I don't think the AI has really any use for scouts. Although sometimes too, when people are down to it, they're like, well, whatever, I'll just attack with my scouts. So I'll have to take a look and see if Micklin went AI. And here we're getting attacked by some Anakites. This is possibly, no, it's not on our fort. So this is just a little bit of caveman PD. And of course, that's not going to do anything to these Anakites. So we definitely have some problems now, right? We're still trying to finish off Nabal. I think we should be able to storm this turn. Obviously, we did beat their army, and I can't remember if we cracked the fort. We'll take a look. But now we're going to be pulled in two different directions, and we knew that Bandar was a risk, but now that their bless is a lot stronger, our life has gotten a lot more difficult, and we're going to need our army down there. So we're not going to be able to transfer as much stuff over to deal with Ashdod. So we're probably going to have to play defense on one of those fronts at least. And then there was a battle in Nabal, so this is probably a storm. And of course, we're one turn behind Asphodel because this player's really good. So let's take a look at what they're rocking and what the plan is here. It looks like mostly just mannequin chaff, and mannequin chaff, and I guess some of these carrion beasts. I'm not sure if these free spawn in. I think so. And then just some centaur. Decent amount of mage support here though, right? Yeah, and he's got some of his mages, like this one that's up front, is twice born. So if he dies, he'll come back as a white mage. That's very cool because this is a risky position to be in an assault. No gems. Okay, some death gems here. Not really sure what this is going to be. Maybe rigor mortis, and a lot of nature gems here. This is probably foul vapors, if I had to guess, right? Because his stuff, I doubt, it's not going to care at all about poison, whereas he's probably up against stuff that does care about poison. And then this is maybe howl, but anyway, a good amount of mage support, but not a crazy amount of mage support, right? He's got things here to do specific jobs, mostly focused on big battlefield spells. So he's not hurting his research too much, but he's not really up against anything. So I don't even think any gem usage will get triggered probably. There's some wooden warriors and everything, some poison resistance. Okay, no, so foul vapors, just foul vapors. So maybe foul vapors was the only part of the plan, because it certainly looks like gem usage was triggered, which is a little weird, but the rules on that are not clear to me, and I have no desire to look them up specifically. Takes them a second to clear the walls of everything, but I think that's going to go pretty well for them. They do lose a good chunk of centaur warriors, and considering how little they were up against, that's kind of sad. You can see the slinger's got a decent amount of kills, though I imagine most of that is the mannequins, which they don't really care too much about that. The centaur warriors that were lost is probably due to poison issues, because these guys do not have any poison resistance. He was probably casting some of the lighter AoE, not battlefield wide poison buffs, but those can miss and often do, and I think that's probably what happened here. It's not the end of the world, but these guys are not cheap, so that's a sad amount of gold to be losing to friendly fire, but it happens. And that definitely looks like a pretty scary army. So we had an unexpected event. There's a fertility cult that took root, and we'll have to try to... okay, interesting. So it looks like this has moved past its earliest phase, so we can't preach this away anymore. We're just going to have to patrol it out probably. So we do have an army there, so we could get rid of this. I'm not sure. Growth is nice, but losing Dominion constantly is going to be a problem. We don't love that. And then there's a new breed of mosquitoes. Fantastic. We lose 30 people. We lose some province income in our capital. That's sad, but not the end of the world. Some province income somewhere else. We did take misfortune, so can't complain too much. People's death match taking place. So this is the People's Arena. No spell casting allowed. I do not think we'll be... Oh yeah, we're definitely not participating. Okay, yeah, the Flagrant... I think probably the Flagrant Tyrant is going to come away from it. That's probably... This feels very AI. Sending a Micklin Priest in. We'll take a look at a few of these other ones. So Ariu sending in their hero. Wow. With a horned helmet. Okay, so he's got an enchanted sword. This guy is decently scary, and yeah, and he's probably not going to be that useful in an army fight, really. So this isn't like the craziest use of him, sending him into the arena, and he's just up against like, the regular commander. So the birds, they're going to do their thing, but I would be shocked if this hero lost. That's interesting that he's a trampler. So I guess, most chariots do trample, so I guess that should make sense. And then we'll see what Yis sent in. They're definitely somebody, looks like just a scout, which I don't know. I'm not really sure the point of that. I guess if somebody sends nothing, or rather if nobody sends anything, then I guess theoretically the scout could win, but we've seen Falegra participate before, and speaking of participation, this Etten Mandragora came in, and I don't know if we've seen this particular guy, maybe, because, he's a hero, and he's got a ton of kit, and so he's got a lot of attacks, he can put people to sleep. The Thorn Spear can poison guys, right? So, poison and cold you need defense against. He's got a Vine Shield, he's got Fear, which is pretty good in arena fights. He's got pretty good resistances, barring Shock, which could be important, and decent protection, a lot of hit points. No regeneration though, which is probably not going to matter too much, but your HP damage does not reset between arena fights. So if this guy has to fight multiple fights, not against a scout, right? So, we've all seen what people have been sending to the arena. So there's a pretty good chance this player knew that it's well, I'm probably not going to have to fight a lot of tough arena fights. So in that case, regeneration matters a whole lot less. Obviously the scout is not going to come away with that. All things are possible in Dominions thanks to, the random number system, but they're not very likely. And this is probably going to decide it with, the Airyu hero being the kind of the wild card. No spell casting, no buffing. This guy is definitely, right, he's not a spellcaster, so the People's Arena is definitely a good choice for him. And then let's see, we've probably seen, this guy has to return, right? He's won the arena before, and so you're forced to return to defend your title. And he's got decent gear and quite a bit of HP, and he does a ton of damage, and he's got really good attack skills, so he's likely to connect. Right, this guy has decent defense, but nothing that's gonna stop him. And I don't think he's gonna get repelled or anything like that. So this is just gonna be a slugfest of who can deal more damage more quickly. Ooh, yeah. His magic resistance is it's decent, but not enough to prevent him from getting wrapped by the Vine Shield. I did forget about that. Now he's going to be able to break the Vine Shield wrap because he has a ton of strength. It slowed down his attacking enough. He only has 1 attack, so it does a lot of damage, but this guy has 5 attacks. Now 3 of those only deal fatigue damage, but still, he's getting in a lot more attacks, combined with the fact that the Vine Shield, right, is interrupting some of Falegra's attacks. I think that made the difference. Our new champion, it looks like. Although I guess we should double check, right, and see if this wild card, I don't know. I don't have high hopes for him. He has even lower magic resistance, right? So that Vine Shield is going to be even more effective. His defense is high, but not quite high enough that, it's going to get harassed down as well. Because the Sleep Vine attacks definitely, and that's all she wrote. So we have a new champion, and nicely done, Asphodel, and he gets the Champion's Trident as a prize, which is what that Flagrant Tyrant was using. How much is, I think this is more bragging rights, really, than anything useful. I think probably his existing weapon kit was arguably better than the Champion's Trident. It's a toss-up. Like everything else, it depends. And we breach Archocephaly, so we should be able to storm this turn. And speaking of Archocephaly, they were permanently vanquished this turn. Nicely done. It was a tough fight, clearly, against Nabaa. And it didn't really work out for either of them, so they at least took out their opponent. But sadly, we didn't really catch much of that. And I will see you guys after the jump. All right, this is the situation and what we're doing about it. Kind of a rough turn. Not we're fine, but I think really starting to bump up against some of the limitations of MA Marignon. I am really starting to come to hate the Witch Hunter because they're not worth their price tag, basically, because it's just 185 gold. Upkeep wise, it could be worse, but just trying to bring them in is brutal. And they just don't offer all that much. Early Age Ermor gets almost the same mage for 65 gold. I mean, fire 2 can be useful, but, if you're communioning them, the extra fire just doesn't really matter that much. The extra fire is really more useful if you want to use them as a solo operator, but considering that they're old men in robes, they're not fantastic solo operators, and then it's like, okay, they're priest level 1, that's occasionally relevant, but they're way too, just like recruit priests for much cheaper if you need priests. They are sacred, which is nice, but you usually, I feel like, can't afford much of a bless for them, because like you need a knight bless as Marignon. I mean, that's not just because I love sacred cavalry, which I do, that's part of why I'm playing Marignon, but I think the nation is limited enough that like you really just can't afford to ignore the knights, which means the fact that your mages are sacred is matters a little less. So it's just for the amount of gold, 185 gold for this guy, it's hurting, but they're what we have. So we're gonna use them. What we're doing, we're up against a decent amount of Anakites here. It does look like Ashdod is going to focus on us, not completely, right? We can see that they've made some inroads here against Eriu, which we'd seen before. This siege is ongoing. We're gonna jump on and see how much siege staff is here, but I suspect that there's probably not a ton. It kind of seems like Ashdod in general, they're lacking on their siege strength. Unfortunately, like Eriu, I don't know what Pelagia is doing. Okay, there's a throne here. Like Uruk is almost dead, so like maybe it's a good time. But here's a Ysian flag showing up. Pretty sure that wasn't there before. It does sound like they're fighting with Yis, so I don't know, it seems odd timing, but it's unfortunate for us because it's going to distract Eriu from fighting against Ashdod. Now that said, we can drop rocks, and it's just I'm really concerned about the inaccuracy because we don't have that many earth mages yet. We still have 2 more turns before the citadel is finished here. We're going to be able to push out more of these throne mages that are going to be really vital for us. So we're going to go with what we have, and unfortunately, like, these Anakites can raid into a lot of places. I suspect what's going to happen, right, there's 3 groups here, and if it feels good and is a good idea to attack as many provinces as once. So I think this group's probably going to come here, right? This group's going to jump on top of the fort, and then this group's going to go one of these 3 provinces. So we're going to cover the provinces that we can. If he comes here, we can't really do anything about that. There is also the possibility that he collapses on top of the fort, which would be ideal for us. In terms of the defense, it's pretty much just the rocks. We'll just talk briefly. Right, here's the problem, right, is we only have 1 rock caster, and we're bringing out, just a really small communion. This guy actually doesn't need a communion to cast Gifts from Heaven, so we're going to have him do Power of the Spheres so that he gets higher paths in magic, right, and then he's going to communion up, summon Earth Power, a little bit to help them with reinvigoration, since this is all going to be off-path casting. So there's a pretty good chance we burn these guys out, which is part of why we're not bringing more, right? And again, if you're burning out augurs, right, or really cheap, astral mages, it's still not ideal, right? That's never what you want to aim for, but it's not nearly as painful as burning out, 2 185 gold mages, with really limited pathing. So it's like, if you're not doing astral or fire, there's a pretty good chance you're going to burn these guys out. So like, this is an awful communion, make no mistake, but it's what we have, right? So, he's going to summon Earth Power to like keep it alive for a little bit longer, and then drop some Gifts from Heaven. He will be Earth 4. Excuse me. Once he's in the communion, he'll be Earth 5, and you only need, I think, Earth 3 for Gifts from Heaven, which is good because it's a fairly fatiguing spell, right? Normally it costs 50 fatigue, so this will be considerably reduced, and he'll get to offload a lot of that fatigue onto the communion slaves, at least as long as they last. Now, he's only going to have, 2 Gifts from Heaven scripted, and there's a pretty good chance we're going to need more than that. The good news is that the AI does like to cast it off script, so in this case, I think the spell casting AI is going to work in our favor. Famous last words. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. We don't really have a front line other than, quite a bit of province defense. And like, this province defense sucks, but it doesn't really matter, right? And province defense is sort of the ideal front line for this, because as long as we don't completely lose the battle, like we'll get it all back. Like, we don't really care about it. It did cost us some gold, but we're not losing like recruited troops. So we'll see. Like, there's definitely a chance that there's not enough gifts from heaven there, just because it's inaccurate, so it's gonna miss. But we don't need that many hits. I suspect there's not that many Anakites here, right? Like, there's just 6 Anakites, and we really just need to trigger a route. And we're pretty much doing more or less the same thing, just with like added stuff. So we're also going to bring in a stack of knights, and then like same thing, except it's not a throne mage. We threw, earth boots on one of our cap onlys, our Grand Master, and he's going to be doing like similar kind of stuff, but we're really delaying the communion here because he's going to try to throw on Strength of Giants onto our knights. So, we'll at least have another element. I mean, 9 of our knights versus like 6 Anakites, that's not a great matchup. But, if we get Strength of Giants on them and they kill a couple, like, we'll see. And then everybody's going to jump into a communion. Oops, you should jump into a communion too. And this is a larger communion, so it'll last longer, but also it will be much more painful if we burn it out. So, I don't know. We're trying to split the difference. The communion is doing, like, some luck, and, we need to bless the knights, but, like, mostly luck spam right before they jump into the communion, and which will help our knights, survive a bit longer. And then we're also going to throw out Solar Eclipse from this guy before he jumps into the communion. And that's just going to help make sure that our knights connect and the Anakites struggle to hit. And then we've done a less of a PD dump, but still a decent PD dump. Barbarian Province Defense, it's still not going to kill Anakites, but it's going to do a little bit better. And, if some of these guys get caught up in that Strength of Giants, that will help. They're not going to love the Solar Eclipse, but, they're really just there to block while the rocks come down. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. This is, is a lot of stuff to be risking, and I'm not super confident in it. Right? The rocks are they're a roll of the dice. If they're going to work, they're going to work really well. Like, if they hit, they're going to work really well. And then if we get unlucky and we get too many misses and our mages fall asleep or we burn out the communion, it's going to be really painful. So, we'll see. There's a little bit of terror. I think we're going to be fine, but some terror, definitely. And then we're, throwing out another raid, very similar to what we did before, right? Just blasting out lesser fire elementals. There's a fair chance this gets countered, but I don't think so. Like, Ashdod hasn't really been, why would he move his Anakites here? I just don't think he's going to. He's going to attack us. And then to that end, this is the most likely defense to work, right? So, the halberdiers, this is already in the dark. Our halberdiers are not going to love that, but they actually can, if they connect with the Anakites, they can kill them. And then, of course, our flagellants, because of the spirit sight. Now, their skills are pretty awful. We have a little bit of attack skill on the bless, so it's probably actually going to put them, around the same ballpark as our halberdiers. And once we harass the Anakites down, and the fact that it's in darkness, I actually think our flagellants are going to do okay. And at the end of the day, the Anakites are going to kill whatever they hit, so the missing protection just isn't going to matter. And then same kind of stuff with our mages, but here we have 2 of the throne mages, so we're going to be able to do extra gifts of heaven. On the other hand, the throne mages are not sacred, right? So, I've been bad-mouthing our grandmasters kind of have similar problems to our witch hunters, but in this case, they would at least be sacred, right? So they get the spirit sight, but I'm not really sure it's going to matter. Gifts from heaven kind of goes all over the place anyway. So, hopefully this will be enough. And then, same kind of problems with this communion, but like I said, it's what we got. So we could be burning a ton of gold this next turn. We'll see how it goes. We're still not building our temple here because we don't have the money for it. We're trying to do some troop recruitment, a little bit of knight recruitment, finishing out a holy 3 here, which I'm really kind of regretting. I think that's because we want somebody that can claim the throne, not have to risk our god, and our prophet is usually pretty busy blessing. In the good news department, we're going to take this really easily. Do we need to storm with all of this? Absolutely not. However, I think the likeliest place for this thug to go is on top of this throne, right? So we're going to site search here. We're already out here. Screw it. I don't want to waste any more time. He's just set to retreat. I just know, who knows? But I have this feeling that he's going to retreat into this cave. And then, he's not going to be able to escape from this stupid thug because we needed this bridge. So, yeah. I've talked about the Asphodel situation before, but I don't know. I think this highlights where it's just, if you're really inflexible, right, is this one province really worth it to Asphodel to antagonize me this much? I think at this point in the game, the answer is yes, right? Because Asphodel said they're bored, right? So I don't think they're fighting any wars. They don't really have anything going on. They're pretty big, right? Like they're at least as big as we are. They have their army over here, right? So like, yeah, they could attack me and that would be fine. But they didn't, right? So, we managed to get a non-aggression pact, but like, it's not one that I'm happy with, right? And all it would have taken one province and I would have been a happy camper. But instead, who knows, right? Like this game, we've been attacked a lot by our neighbors and that may continue to happen. Like sometimes you have to react. Ideally, that's not what you're doing, but you don't always have control of it. But as soon as we get the chance to take a breather, Asphodel is definitely like on the chopping block, which could very well be a disaster because, like I said, this player is better than I am. But we would not be going in alone, in this prospective war. We haven't figured out like who we would try to get to join, but all that is long in the future. In terms of joining, I do plan on reaching out to Phaecia. I still haven't really talked to them yet. I don't really have high hopes for them wanting to attack Bandar. But if they attack Bandar, that would be nice. Cause Bandar, right? They're thug. I think he's gonna go here. Who knows? He could go anywhere. And sadly, I'm pretty sure this entire army would bounce to this thug. So we're definitely not going to move, anything of our army out there. And we're just going to hide right in Argocephaly, because we are very close to the point where we don't need to do regular phase movement, which is going to be huge. Now we're still going to have to figure out, we can teleport some of our mages around, but mage movement, I'm still going to have to think about, and we still need some gear. And speaking of gear, we're doing a ton of forging this turn with no Dwarven hammers. We're not even making a Dwarven hammer. We were going to make a Dwarven hammer and try to be really efficient about it. But I'm starting to feel pressured enough now, right? Because the Ashdod situation, he's starting to focus on us, so we need to deal with that. I need to talk with Phlegra, right? Because I don't think Xibalba is going to last very long at all. And then there's a very good, it really feels like these two have made peace. And possibly they're hey, why are we fighting each other? We're both giants, we're cool, we can attack Marignon together once you finish the Xibalba. Who knows? Probably not. So I'm hoping, I can redirect Phlegra. But his armies are here on our border, and like I said, I think this war is going to be done really soon, and we don't really have, it's the same problem, the same reason that Mictlan and Bandar attacked us over here. We just don't really have enough infrastructure. We're actually not upgrading the fort here this turn, even though our architect has arrived, because we don't have the money. And the other thing is we can't get rid of these damn scales. So I just think upgrading it at this point is just in 20 turns that's going to be really useful for us. But we may not own this in 20 turns. And we're definitely going to need troop production sooner than in 20 turns. Even though we have some candles here now, it's such a disaster that it should get taken this coming turn. It is cracked. And then Mictlan will truly be gone, and we can hopefully get some Dominion spread in. Of course, there's a throne right here, so we're going to get some of Phlegra's Dominions. So, we're probably going to need to recruit more priests and everything. But anyway, we're doing some recruitment up here, but very little. And one of the things we're recruiting is a paladin, which is chewing up a ton of our resources. And it's okay, why are we recruiting a paladin? The thug, right? So Soulslay was not working for us. I think I took a look. It's roughly we had a 6% chance, 6 or 7% chance to soul slam each Soulslay, and that's not good enough. If we brought enough mages, a ton of mages, but again, it's really hard to mass witch hunters for a massive Soulslay battery like that. So that's not really feasible for us. So if we massed, we could make that work, but we can't really mass, and we don't have the witch hunters over here anyway. So what we're trying to do two things. We need penetration gear, right? And we're about to finish out construction 6, so we're gonna have all of our construction needs settled, and we're actually pretty good. We really only want construction 6 for a specific booster, and the lanterns for research are gonna be really nice for us. But anyway, we do have a bunch of construction research now, so we're gonna get a rune smasher, which is a penetration item. We're basically going to try to get full penetration items. We'll probably ideally forge like 2 sets of those. The Rune Smasher we're going to have to wait on a little bit because you need water gems for that. We may try to trade or like alchemize. We do have a ton of Astral Pearls, right, thanks to that Death Basket, so that's in the good news department, and we really do like Astral Pearls for our summons. And related to that, we've pushed around our research. I'm really sad to be pushing off Eternal Pyre farther, but I just think, I mean, we have so many Astral Pearls now, and another possible way we could, deal with this thug, or maybe these thugs. I feel like these are going to start to get printed because like now that Bandar's full bless is online, it's like I couldn't understand like what they were doing, and I still don't think that it's a great way to play. It's certainly never a way I would want to play because I just feel, for me, it would be boring to just sit there. But it does appear that, Bandar, like they have some kind of game plan. And, I'm not thrilled that now they have it online. And like, the regeneration, I don't actually think is going to be that relevant. Let the bless run. I mean, it's nice, like it's a nice to have, and they can stack, like they can also put personal regeneration on themselves, so they can get like 20% regeneration, but like 20% regeneration on 28 hit points is pretty underwhelming. I think actually the Blood Vengeance is going to be more annoying. So anyway, they've got Blood Vengeance, and they have a huge stack of Sacreds, both their summons and their troops, and so we're going to be getting hit with Blood Vengeance, right, every time that we're killing them, and we're just using mundane human troops that don't have very good magic resistance. We can cast anti-magic at least, so hooray. But it's still going to be really painful now, right, to get rid of their stack. So I'm expecting Bandar to come out pretty hard, and I'm expecting that they're probably going to start building more of these thugs. So we really need ways like to kill them, and our army is not the answer. So one of the answers is all that penetration gear to make our soul slays like actually possibly viable. I think if we get like the full penetration gear on them and like use one of our better grandmasters that's high astral, we'll end up with like roughly a 30 to 40% chance of soul slaying at the current magic resistance level. He could definitely up that with gear, right? So I think soul slay is going to be an inconsistent answer for us. It'll still be useful. I think it'll also be useful against like Ashdod's Sacreds because they're right around the same magic resistance breakpoint. In no case do I think we can rely completely on Soul Slay, but having a couple dedicated Soul Slayers with full penetration gear is definitely going to be a useful thing. So we're going to build a couple of those. But the other thing we're going to do is we're building some Paladin Thugs. Right, and one of the nice things for us and the downsides for Kael'thasa is these guys are magic beings, which means that we can forge Moonblades. Somewhere we have Moonblades being, here we go. I am assured of this. So, Moonblades, two-handed weapon, it deals ×2 damage to magic beings, and since it's a two-handed weapon, it just deals a lot of damage to begin with, and you get an extra bonus from your strength. Speaking of strength, we have +4 strength on the Bless. We're also forging some Girdles of Might, which are going to give us more strength, and then we're going to forge some Burning Pearls as well to make sure that we connect, because his attack is his defense is pretty solid. It's 21, and that is a bit of a problem with our Bless, right? We have only +2 attack skill on our Bless. We can see even this guy, like with some experience, only attack skill 14, so attack skill 16, with the Bless active. He will connect periodically, but that thug is dangerous enough. Like, we really need to connect quickly. Now, the downside to all this is we're not really going to be able to boost the magic resistance much on these guys, which, as you can see, is pretty abysmal. So these guys are going to be kind of kamikaze thugs, and they're going to be relatively expensive kamikaze thugs, right? Like 15 gems a piece with that kit. So we're talking like 30 gems of kamikaze, which is probably like roughly what he spent like on his full, because his is fully kitted. And like ideally, we're also probably going to bring in, I don't know, some witch hunter, this guy, Grandmaster, who's now a witch hunter because he got muted. He's old and they're terrible. But anyway, we'll bring in like this guy or somebody to cast Solar Eclipse, and then the nice thing is he can pick up some gear when the paladins kill themselves. We may also bring somebody in to cast anti-magic, just to try to keep them alive. So anyway, forging 2 sets of that gear, right? We're recruiting 1 paladin here, an assassin, just because like we have an extra commander point, and like sure, why not? Also, also like a lot of Ashdod's bless is incarnate, and like we can see that, you know, his pretender is just an archmage, right? Just he's a little manlet, you know, 5'11", and you know, he doesn't really appear to be doing much patrolling on the capital. Like he has some chaff here, but not much. There's also like not too many other. I mean, we could assassinate him potentially. There's some giants, like, you know, if we get the Adon in the assassination attempt, our little human assassin will die. But we'll probably gear out, like, we'll have like one overkitted assassin, you know, give him a bow, give him the Pokemon items, and like just wait for the moment, because like these add-ons are probably going to move out when, you know, he recruits some more of his sacreds, you know, so he'll send these guys out to command him. So, you know, when there's a moment when there's not too much stuff in here, we'll roll the dice and try to assassinate his, you know, pretender god. Like, we'll see. This is not high probability, and kind of just more for the fun of it. So anyway, forging a bunch of stuff, activating a bunch of mages. Our research, of course, is suffering for that. And then, yeah, the other thing about this thug is it currently has shock weakness, right? And our summons are pretty solid air casters, so we're going to be able to do like lightning bolt and thunder strike really easily. So, you know, once we bring some harbingers in, we'll have another avenue to eliminate this thug and any others like we see him, or like that we see like him. So that'll be good. And then, you know, yeah, did I mention? I think I talked about Gateway. Yeah, maybe. If I didn't, we're forging a bunch of gear to allow ourselves to Gateway our army, right? And that's also part of why we're not moving out, because we should take this turn, and then we'll have access to a lab. We can slap some gear on one of these commanders, you know, load them up with as many units as we want, and then we can, if we want to, you know, we can gateway over to here. We can also gateway over to here. In terms of like who we're going to attack, I mean, it's obviously either going to be Ashdod or Bandar, and like, I mean, we are going to fight both, but it's like, okay, well, who are we going to focus on? And I think there's arguments for both. I think we're going to beat Ashdod more easily because they just haven't shown us all that much other than their sacreds, and they don't really seem to have all that much. You know, I mean, like, we can see this, like, there's like very few mages here. Like, there's not a lot of units. They don't seem to have a lot of forts, right? So in that sense, like, you know, Ashdod is absolutely the person to attack, because I think, you know, we're gonna make a lot of progress quickly against them, which is gonna be really nice. So like, yeah, we should attack Ashdod. But now I'm like, you know, I was always a little bit in the back of my head worried that Bandar Log was working on, you know, some kind of devious plan. And, you know, now that their Bless has come online and we know that they have like a massive stack, I'm a little hesitant, right, to just gateway our army away and then, you know, send it off, and then, you know, Bandar starts to roll in. I mean, we'll be able to do some recruitment, and like the scales in Arco are not favorable for us, but they're at least not the exact opposite of what we need, and we're not actually like that far away from our capital. So we'll probably, yeah, because basically it's like, well, do I want to give Bandar even more time, because they have a lot of mages, right? They have cheap astral mages who are probably pretty solid researchers. So like, they only have 2 forts, but those 2 forts, like, it's like 70 units, mostly mages. Now, you know, maybe they have like some perceived army size like items in play, but I don't think so. Like, I think it's, you know, totally reasonable that they have just been sitting here recruiting, you know, only like little cheap mages like every turn out of their forts, and as a consequence, like, they're getting a ton of research done, right? So it's like, do I really want to, like, the longer we just let Bandar sit here and do whatever it is they're planning to do, the more painful this is going to be for us. On the other hand, like, I think it's already to the point where it's going to be pretty painful, and we would kind of prefer them to come out, right? And we'd be able to defeat some stuff before we have to like go into their forts. The other problem is it's entirely possible that he has Magic Duel by this point, and that spell is going to be a bit of a nightmare in this scenario, right? If he really has like 70 of his super cheap mages, like, we can't bring mages to fights. I don't know. I'll have to look at the breakdown for like an Astral 1 versus an Astral 3, but it's not great. We might bring like a few Grand Masters that are high Astral just so that we can, have a lot of monkeys blow themselves up, and we're just going to have to like attrit him down that way. We can, funny enough, the initiates are pretty much the only mages we can bring that we don't have to worry, about them getting magic dueled, and we probably will. So we probably will shift a bunch of initiates over. It's possible that he doesn't know about that spell, and I was really hoping that was the case when he was just sitting in his forts doing nothing with kind of a bizarre bless. I mean, I still, like I said, I'm still not sold on this playstyle, but now I'm starting to think like, okay, maybe there is a thought process here. Like, maybe he does have a long-term plan, and maybe he is the kind of player that knows that like, oh, okay, like, yeah, I can just magic duel Marignon. Like, I'll just wait till I get my bless online and my key research, and yeah, I'm not sure what that would look like. But anyway, we can at least have these guys blast out fire elementals, which for the moment are still going to do, pretty well against Kalos's stuff. So like, it may just be a case of like, yeah, we bring a couple of our high astral grandmasters to try to get off some, turn 1 spells, like the same kind of stuff, flaming arrows and solar eclipse, right? And then, if they get magic dueled, like, so be it, and it's the cost of doing business. And then we bring a bunch of initiates that are just going to blast out a bunch of fire elementals, like, to support our army. But long story short, I think this is going to be a lot more painful, and it's going to net us a lot less territory. So, in that sense, it's not very attractive, right? It's like, okay, well, let's do this war first, right, before somebody else like Phlegra comes in, or Ariu, right, and just eats them, right? On the other hand, if we eat all, like, we're already like struggling a little bit to control our territory, and like, this is a good amount of territory. It's going to put us in contact, well, it's actually not going to put us in contact with any important new neighbors. Now that I think we're going to go after Ashdod, like, talking through this. This has been useful, guys. Thanks. Because we know that to the north, right, there's Jotunheim and there's Agartha, who, from what we've heard through the grapevine, are fighting like kind of an apocalyptic war against each other. So I think they're both going to be really exhausted and like unlikely to attack. It does kind of seem like Agartha is starting to get the upper hand, right? We can see, I guess, did I call him Utgard? This is Jotunheim. I can never remember the different, I'm playing in a couple different ages right now, so please excuse me confusing the nations. Whatever, the cold giants. They seem to kind of be on the back foot here, right? So Gartha seems like, yeah, maybe they're going to win out. But Shiniyama, who we've been pretty friendly with, we have a non-aggression pact with, like, they're about to close out their war against Tianqi. So, I might talk to them and be like, hey, like, I heard, Gartha really struggled to close out this war. Like, why don't you do that, while I do this? And then, we'll have a friendly neighbor as our new neighbor. And so, like, anyway, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm actually less worried about picking up these two guys as new neighbors. Obviously, like, we already have a relationship with Ariu. We have a non-aggression pact with them. And then Phlegra, like, we're already worried about. We already need to deal with that. So, and this would just leave us with more border with Phlegra. So if Phlegra is going to be a problem, like, they're going to be a problem whether or not we have the Ashdod territory. If they're not going to be a problem, they're not going to be a problem whether or not we have the Ashdod territory. So yeah, I think we do gateway out like a good amount of our stuff. We're going to probably leave behind like a core of things that are still going to be like scary enough that if he brings out his full army, we'll be able to do some recruitment, bring some stuff in from the capital, and actually have like a solid army fight against him. Then, once we finish Ashdod, which I'm sure will go fine and quickly and there'll be no problems, then we'll come and attack Bandar once they've finished their dastardly plan. And, we'll find out all about that and we'll have to figure that out. But that will at least give us some more time to print some more like paladin, counter thugs essentially that we're probably going to need. And then someday we'll put up Eternal Pyre, right, and then print all the knights, and then I won't have to care about how much like witch hunters cost, because we'll have all the money, because we'll be wasting our fire gems on alchemy, which people say is a really terrible idea, but I intend to find out. Otherwise, it's not all completely about us. Like I said, Shiniyama is definitely like winding down this war. We're not going to get these Amazons. It's fine. We have these other. We can't even take advantage of the Amazons we have. Oh, it'd be nice to get these going, which we will. We will in due time, I'm sure, but it's just way too dangerous, I think, to try to set up a fort here. We just don't really have the money. And then actually, like, these independents down here would be, wait, no, not these independents. Oh, wait, hang on. It's this cave. Okay, yeah. These guys would be nice. Just purely from like a, is this something that's not fire and astral, a diversity standpoint? These are looking very attractive. It's kind of a crap province, of course. And like we already have like too much infrastructure, we can't recruit anyway, yada yada yada. We'll put another fort here, but again, it's like right on the board, we can't put a fort here yet. But anyway, so we're not going to get these independents, but there are other independents out there for us. And like, yeah, so Shiniyama is, I think, going to close this out relatively soon. The siege of Pangaea continues forever, which is probably a good thing. I mean, it was definitely a good thing for us, right? The longer that Abyssinia is busy with this, like the better. And you know, who knows, right? We like fire gems for our infinite fire gem plan. Like more lizard shamans would be appreciated. So, you know, maybe eventually someday Abyssinia. And then also interestingly, we caught that Man and Ulm are fighting now. And it looks like Man is, you know, making, I mean, I don't know. These aren't cracked yet. So like, who knows if this is just temporary progress that's about to be rolled back. But it's certainly looks better for Man than for Ulm. So, you know, with our very limited scouting, we're going to take a look at one of these. And yeah, I think that more or less covers it. Apologies for a bit of a long-winded turn. I think we've been on break I think almost for an entire month for this game, so I haven't really thought about it in a long time, and you know, so just trying to dive back in and reacquaint myself with everything that's going on. But yeah, that covers turn 38.